Welcome to Daily Variety, your daily dose of news and analysis for entertainment industry insiders. It's Thursday, July 23rd, 2026. I'm your host, Cynthia Littleton. I am co-editor-in-chief of Variety alongside Ramin Satuda. I'm in LA, he's in New York, and Variety has reporters around the world covering the business of entertainment. On today's episode, in our cover story segment, we'll hear from Variety's Angelique Jackson. She has done a terrific profile of the many sides of Travis Scott. He is the epitome of a 21st century multi-hyphenate, a music and business mogul who also has a small but high-profile role in the opening and the ending of the movie of the moment, The Odyssey. Travis Scott is in a pretty fabulous place in his career, and he is expanding in all areas, including through a new first-look deal with Paramount Pictures that Jackson reports on. But before we get to all of that, here are a few headlines just in this morning that you need to know. Get ready for Liam and Noel on the Lido. The Venice Film Festival's lineup is out, and it includes the Oasis reunion tour documentary Don't Look Back in Anger from Stephen Knight. Also coming are new projects from a top slate of international helmers, including Martin McDonagh, Florian Zeller, Danny Boyle, Werner Herzog, Lance Oppenheim, Nani Moretti, Hirozaku Koreeda, and Lee Chang-dong. My great colleagues Nick Vivarelli and Elise Schaefer have the whole lineup and great analysis on the choices for the Sprocket Opera that unfolds next month in Venice. Well, this just in, Apple TV's The Morning Show will end after its upcoming 5th season in 2027. This was the high-wattage show that launched Apple into the television business with the debut of what was then Apple TV Plus on November 1st, 2019. The Morning Show also launched producer Michael Ellenberg's Media Res banner. Both have come a long way since. And a housekeeping note for listeners, Daily Variety is taking summer vacation next week. We will be back with fresh episodes on August 3rd. All of the stories just mentioned and so much more can be found on Variety.com right now. And now it's time for conversations with Variety journalists about news and trends in show business. Angelique Jackson has delivered another incisive profile for Variety's cover, and this time her focus was on Houston's own Travis Scott. He is a business dynamo who is increasingly being seen on the big screen, and she captures all of it after conducting a great sit-down interview with him in New York earlier this month. It's not quite a sit-down, as she will explain. But first up, we'll hear a clip of Travis Scott himself speaking in Variety's very fun video series, Know Their Lyrics. Here, Travis Scott talks about his small but significant role in the Odyssey, and he talks about collaborating on the film's end credit song, When I'm Home. And that's followed by my conversation with Angelique Jackson, senior entertainment writer for Variety.
A trick to break the walls of Troy. Yes. Yeah, this is the 6th line in the movie The Odyssey.
A trick to break the walls of Troy.
Also, like, part of the original song, which I'm so happy that I am a part of. And especially for like a film like this, even to be in the movie is amazing. Like, I'm pretty sure all these people are like straight thespians, and something I aspired to be when I was a kid. To go through that zone and process to see how they work and things come to life and how they treat, waking up at 5 a.m. and, leaving at 5 p.m. or 3 p.m., whatever it is, every day, even just the things that they went through shooting that movie. Like, everything's like so real. I, praise what they do. It actually took me to another place like, okay, wow. Yeah, this isn't the studio. Chris called me. He was like, yo, you think you want to be in a movie? And I'm like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? I said, man, I'm about to start shooting, this movie called The Odyssey. Like, I got this idea. It's telling me about, the Bard role and, how the connection between even just being an artist and, through rap, it's like a form of like, in some sense, like poetry. And I'm like, okay, but what's the idea? He's like, well, I want you to open it. I'm like, all right, bro. Like, he's like, well, just come pull up on me. Like, you come see it if you're down to do it. I'm like, of course I'm down to do it. I don't give a fuck what it is. And, I was just a little bit like, kind of like thrown off by it. And I showed up the first day And I'm thinking like, oh, it's just gonna be me, him, a couple extras, maybe like a couple castmates, Nah, it was everybody. Like, and I was like, fuck, When I saw the film in IMAX for the first time, man, it was wild. Like, me and my guy David was like kicking me. He's like, what the fuck? I'm like, bro, shut up. Like, me in the movie, he's like, oh, this is crazy. But even me, I'm like, oh, this is insane.
Angelique Jackson, fresh off your latest cover story triumph, giving us a terrific and incisive profile of Travis Scott, who is the definition of a multi-hyphenate these days. He's got a lot of oars in the water in different areas, and you really capture all of it. Angelique, what was the spark for this story?
What's so interesting about this story is that all of these big ideas that Travis Scott has in the works, everything from being in what's going to be one of the biggest movies of the year with The Odyssey to his new business dealings, were all kind of coming together at this same point in time this summer. So a big part of the news of this story is that Travis Scott is signing a first look deal over at Paramount Pictures, which is very exciting because they had kind of teased that they had some more things in the works with him. He's done, his company Cactus Jack has done some product and apparel collaborations that have been blockbusters for them, but this is his real opportunity to get into the movies. So because, again, being in this big movie, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, it just made for the perfect moment to capture all of this at once.
With all these different areas of focus, when you sat down with the conversation, where did you start?
So we ended up starting with The Odyssey because it does kind of hit on both sides of things. He's in the movie pretty briefly, but he was hired just to be an actor, but he does the end credits song. So there's kind of this natural through line for, okay, well, this is your music era. You've just been on this big, huge tour. You're working on your next record. But before that, you're going to do The Odyssey.
Homer meets hip hop.
And it's so genius because that was the precise reason that Christopher Nolan hired him for the film. So Christopher Nolan had this idea that oral storytelling was obviously how Homer's The Odyssey was passed down for centuries. And the modern day equivalent of that are rappers. He had worked with Travis Scott on Tenet for that 2020 film. They did the end credit song there. Ludwig Göransson had brought him in for that. So yeah, Christopher Nolan isn't just like a huge rap head that you just didn't know about. He's not a huge hip hop head, but
there's always a thread with Nolan. There's often a connective tissue there. That's so interesting.
He loves to bring people back. But in this case, very much like Harry Styles in Dunkirk, he just wanted Travis to be an actor. He just wanted him to play the bard and sing the song of Odysseus in the introduction to this movie, which very much sets up that it's the Odyssey, but for a modern audience. It's very much a modern take on it. But in terms of the conversation, that was a good place for Travis and I to begin because it gets him talking about that part of his brain and how his music side of things works, but the fact that he had to turn it off to do this movie. Because Chris didn't actually come with him to do the end credit song until March. So just a couple months ago, the decision was made that he and Ludwig Göransson and James Blake were going to write this end credit song. Chris actually kind of like bucked against it for a while.
That's quite a combination of talent. Did you get the sense that he wants to pursue more acting?
So what was really interesting is that he says he enjoys acting. He's also going to play himself in a comedy movie with Owen Wilson called Rolling Loud that they filmed during his set back in 2024. There are paparazzi photos of Owen up there performing with him. But he enjoys acting. He thinks it's fun. But because he is such a creative visionary, he is much more interested in creating, which is why this Paramount deal has happened. He's kind of more of a big picture visionary where acting is being in service of someone else's vision. So he has more interest in producing, directing. He's been writing screenplays. He wants to remake The Warriors, potentially, which is a Paramount project. That's how he and Josh Greenstein first actually bonded over
One
there.
of the most fun trips from the Bronx to the Battery ever taken.
And what's so interesting is he is also very aware that Lin-Manuel Miranda is doing it on Broadway. So he understands that is something that is in the works, but that doesn't mean he can't do a TV show or movie version of it too. And maybe the two of them help each other get more into the culture.
When I was a kid, Angelique, a very snipped up version of that movie would run at least once a month on one of the local channels. That movie was one of those that was just everywhere there for a while.
I love that you say that, because that is also the case with Travis Scott. He is just everywhere. You know, a big part of what everyone has told me about him is that he is culture. So obviously, you know, yes, he's now looking to make more movies. He's acting, he's doing all of this, but everything this man touches becomes culture, is what folks have said to me. You know, when he has an apparel drop, when he has his sunglasses line, or even if you remember back a few years ago, he had his McDonald's meal. He was one of the first artists to do something like that. Everything that he does sells out instantly. And a big part of why that seems to be is because he has a real understanding of the fan experience. He says that I'm a fan first, so I'm trying to create the experiences that I did not have. And he's really kind of created an ecosystem around himself and all of the different endeavors that he's interested in. In fact, there's actually going to be a course at USC this fall that dives into the business of Travis Scott and how he has become really a cultural figure unto himself.
What did you get the sense was the nucleus of Travis Scott? Would you say it's the music? Would you say it's the creative writing as an outlet, whether it's music or screenplays?
I think it's definitely more of the latter. I think he is a pure creative. He is just interested, and has been from the beginning, in looking at everything in as much of a 360-degree view as possible. He wants to tinker and get his hands dirty and involved with every element. You know, you look back at early interviews with him, and he's talking about, he started out very much more as a beat maker, a producer, and he was, you know, just really getting involved in all of the sonics and evolved into a huge artist. And from there, he then wanted to help other people get their careers going as an artist. So he just can't really focus on one thing. And that's why I had that line about how a sit down isn't really a sit down with him, because his mind is always going a mile a minute. He's also incredibly intelligent about a ton of different topics. He told me a really sweet story about how his grandmother was an English professor, and she, during summertime, had assigned him to read Homer's The Odyssey, and he didn't do it and just read the Cliff Notes, and he got in trouble.
That's grandmother foreshadowing. I wonder if he confessed that to Christopher Nolan.
He did not confess that to Christopher Nolan, and I'm going to admit that I did a bad part as a journalist, and I did not tell Christopher Nolan either. So Christopher Nolan is going to find out by reading the Variety cover story in print, as he should.
That's so funny. Well, you're talking about his grandmother goes to my next question. Travis Scott came out of the very, very fertile world of the Houston music scene. What's important to him? What made Travis Scott the visionary, the business person that he is today?
I do think that he does it all, and he says he seems to kind of do it all for who he was when he was younger. For someone who had all of these big dreams and didn't know how he was going to get there, he seems to kind of have that person in mind when he's making all these decisions. He talks a lot about, you know, being a kid, listening to Kid Cudi. Scott Mescudi is his real name, which is why Travis Scott's name is Travis Scott. His first name comes for a favorite uncle, and Scott comes from Scott Mescudi. But he just basically, his idea is that he imagined kind of this life for himself, and he wants to show other people that they can have it too, in whatever way that is. So he looks at his music as relating and escapism and just trying to speak to the different fan audiences. And because of that connection with his fans, that is really the large driver in all of the success in the business. There's a reason why these hundreds of thousands of people come out to his shows. There's a reason why they want to buy the sneakers that he has and tap into those things. And it is impressive, you know, to think that he's also coming from an area that gave us, you know, Beyonce, Megan Thee Stallion, all kinds of other Houston area like superheroes. But Travis Scott is definitely one of the brightest stars in that constellation.
Did you get the sense that in terms of his career that he aspired and built it, or was it he got lucky and some of his music got attention and that then helped him build?
I think he's very meticulously built this career. You kind of look at every decision that he's made, and I don't think he's necessarily like strategic in that way. Like he's not, I'm going to do a Christopher Nolan movie because I want to get into films. I do think he is thoughtful about what he says yes to and what he doesn't. That was something that really struck me in talking to him as well. He was very thoughtful about his answers. He would take his time to think through what he was going to say, but he does have an answer for just about everything. He said something that didn't make the story, but he basically brought forth the idea that he's creating new plateaus for himself. Everything is a new benchmark.
You said he was thoughtful in his answers, but was he forthcoming, or did it take a lot of coaxing?
He was very forthcoming, I will say. He was definitely very active. When I say he was sitting down a lot, I mean he was kind of up, down, around this very small dressing room that we were in. But he was very articulate about his ideas in the sense that there's no one like pulling the puppet strings behind Travis Scott. No one is like telling him, oh, I think this would be a really good idea to do. He's an equal partner with his partners. David Stromberg is one of the other big pieces of his Cactus Jack story, who's been working with him since he was a manager, and they've evolved this business together.
I see that Cactus brand name on a lot of shows. They definitely have a lot of activity going.
They really have their hands in absolutely everything. I know I mentioned apparel before. They at one point had a seltzer line. He does a lot of his philanthropic foundation work that exists under that arm. It is also kind of like the live entertainment brand and the creative for his tours. I think the biggest thing is that Travis Scott has always kind of created universes for each, and also for each album, they are very distinct. Each album has its own kind of distinctive look and feel and vibe. So for Utopia, the most recent album, it came with a visual component. He'd initially imagined, oh, maybe I'll do Utopia as like a Broadway style musical, because people may not realize, but Travis Scott was in musical theater growing up.
One of the perks of this job is you get to speak to and be around some of the most wildly creative people that are literally shaping culture. Listeners, Angelique is beaming because she knows she has captured this really influential person at this great moment in time.
And I think there's a lot of people who are very familiar with Travis Scott, with the Cactus Jack brand. But I think this is an opportunity where he is right now in his career to really look at him as a mogul in the making, as a real, like, culture shifter. He's someone to watch.
Angelique, thank you again so much for wrestling another terrific cover story to the ground. Can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you.
As we close out today's episode, here's a few things we're watching for. Variety and CNN are expanding our content partnership. The two great news brands will collaborate on more projects throughout award season, including content around the Emmys and the Golden Globe Awards. This expansion follows a very successful partnership between CNN and Variety for the past two cycles of our signature Actors on Actors video series. Keep an ear out tomorrow for a special bonus edition of Daily Variety. I spoke with Colleen Bell, California's film commissioner, and she has a lot of thoughts about where the industry stands in California after what she sees as 8 years of intense focus on industry problems from the Newsom administration in Sacramento. It's a good listen, and I didn't want to chop it down too much, so we'll call it a bonus episode before I head out for a break in the mountains. Remember, Daily Variety will be off next week, the week of July 27th. We'll be back with fresh episodes on August 3rd. And just as a reminder, Daily Variety is newsy and delivers off-the-headlines coverage Monday through Thursday, 20 minutes or less with very few exceptions. And on Fridays, we publish Strictly Business, Variety's long-form interview podcast. This week's Strictly Business is my conversation with Madison Wells chief Gigi Pritzker and the company's new head of content, Dan Steinman. So look out for it tomorrow. We love to hear from our listeners, so please send thoughts, gripes, and other feedback about Daily Variety to podcasts@variety.com. Before we go, congrats to Bill Kang. He's been named Chief Operating Officer of gaming company Little Snack. He joins the company after holding senior posts at gaming firms Supercell and Scopely. At Scopely, he worked with the founders of Little Snack. Thanks for listening. This episode was written and reported by me, Cynthia Littleton, with contributions from Angelique Jackson. Sticks, nicks, hick, picks. Please leave us a review at the podcast platform of your choice, and don't forget to tune in August 3rd for another episode of Daily Variety.